Very few people know that long before the world crowned him the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley stood dangerously close to making the most painful decision of his life, letting go of his dream. Long before the applause, before the stage lights, before his name echoed across generations, there was a quiet young man from Memphis who nearly walked away because his dream felt too big for the life he was living. Elvis grew up surrounded by hardship. Poverty was not a phase, it was a constant presence. His home was small, his clothes modest, and his future uncertain. His father worked whatever jobs he could find, while his mother became the emotional center of his world, the one place where Elvis felt understood and safe. Music was not a luxury in his life, it was an escape. Through a worn-out radio and the hymns of a small church, Elvis discovered another world, a world where fear loosened its grip and hope could breathe. But dreams, no matter how beautiful, often clash with reality. When Elvis first dared to imagine himself as a singer, the world did not welcome the idea. It questioned him. It dismissed him. He was not from a big city. He had no formal training. He did not fit neatly into any category. His voice sounded different. His style felt strange. Even those closest to him were unsure whether such a dream was worth chasing. Elvis spent his days working jobs that had nothing to do with music, driving trucks, delivering goods, returning home exhausted both physically and emotionally. At night, his guitar became his only companion. It listened without judgment. Yet as time passed, a heavy question began to follow him everywhere. What if this is all for nothing? There was one night in particular that would stay with Elvis forever. A night when he sat alone in silence, his guitar resting in the corner, untouched. He had faced another rejection. No applause, no encouragement, just the quiet weight of disappointment pressing down on him. Elvis stared at his hands he had always believed would carry him out of a narrow life. For the first time, he doubted them. He doubted his voice. He doubted his dream. In his mind, another version of life appeared. A safer life, a steady job, no stages, no ridicule, no pain from hoping too much. A simple, predictable existence like so many others around him. For a brief moment, that path felt tempting. His mother had always told him that he was special, that he had something rare inside him, but the world had never confirmed that belief. The world offered only rejection and silence. And that night, Elvis almost accepted that maybe the world was right. Yet it was precisely at that lowest point that something shifted, quietly, subtly, but powerfully. Elvis realized that if he stopped now, he would not only be giving up on music, he would be giving up on himself. He would live the rest of his life haunted by one question: what if? He did not know if he would succeed. He did not know if fame would ever come. But he knew one truth with absolute clarity: quitting would hurt more than failing ever could. The days that followed did not suddenly become easier. There were no miracles, no overnight transformations. Elvis kept working. He kept being underestimated. He kept being labeled as strange and different. But something inside him had changed. He stopped chasing approval. He began singing because he had to, not because he wanted validation. When he finally received his first opportunity to record, it was far from perfect. Even the people behind the glass in the studio were uncertain. Elvis walked out with his heart racing, caught between hope and fear. Once again, the familiar question returned: is this enough? The answer did not come right away. It took time, patience, courage. Elvis learned that great dreams demand great endurance, the endurance to face fear, embarrassment, and repeated failure in public. He learned that belief is not loud, it is quiet and persistent. There were moments when he stood behind the stage curtain, his heart pounding so hard he considered walking away. No one was forcing him to stay. He could leave. But instead, he took one small step forward, and that step changed everything. Performance after performance, something new began to form. Confidence. Not because everyone loved him, but because he was finally accepting himself. Elvis stopped trying to imitate anyone else. He became fully, unapologetically himself. Even as his name began to spread, the shadows of doubt never fully disappeared. But now Elvis understood that doubt did not have to win. It could exist without controlling him. When the world eventually embraced Elvis, many believed his success had come easily. They did not see the sleepless nights. They did not hear the silent prayers. They did not know how close the world had come to losing a voice that would change music forever. Elvis had nearly let go of his dream, and because he had come so close to surrendering it, he understood its true value. He learned that dreams are not sustained by talent alone, but by resilience, by standing when the world tells you to sit down, by singing when no one is listening. This is not just a story about music. It is the story of an ordinary human being who chose to endure just a little longer than his fear, of someone who believed in himself when no one else did. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all, that the darkest moments are often not the end, but the beginning of something far greater. Elvis did not become a legend because he never doubted himself. He became a legend because he almost gave up and chose to keep going. Had he walked away that night, the world would have lost more than a singer. It would have lost proof that dreams, no matter how fragile, are worth fighting for until the very end. And that is why this story still matters today. It reminds us that even legends once stood on the edge of surrender.
In the end, this story is not only about Elvis Presley. It is not simply about music, fame, or a name that would later be written into history books. This is a story about a quiet moment, a moment when one person almost let go of his dream, and the world nearly lost something it did not yet know it needed. Elvis was not born a legend. He did not grow up believing that one day millions of people would remember his name. He was just a young man with a simple guitar, a voice that sounded different, and a dream that often felt far too big for the life he was living. He felt what so many people feel: fear of failure, fear of being laughed at, fear of hoping for too much. And perhaps that is why his story feels so close to us, because almost everyone has stood at that same point, a point where dreams begin to feel exhausting, where effort seems to lead nowhere, where the world says no far more often than it ever says yes, where we begin to ask ourselves, is this really worth continuing? Elvis had been there. He had sat in silence, weighing whether a safe life without big dreams might be better than a risky life filled with disappointment. He almost chose the easier path. Almost. What set Elvis apart was not fearless courage. It was not unshakable confidence. What set him apart was one small decision to hold on for just one more day, to take one more step forward, to sing one more time, even when there was no guarantee anyone would listen. We often believe that life-changing moments arrive as miracles, but the most important changes are usually born from something far simpler: the decision not to quit today. If Elvis had given up that night, the world would have never heard his voice. Music would not have moved in the same direction, and we would not have a story that still reminds us today that dreams, no matter how fragile, are still worth fighting for. But the true ending of this story is not about the fame he eventually achieved. It is not about massive stages or blinding spotlights. The true ending is about the meaning of the journey itself. Because real success is not only about reaching the top. Real success is about refusing to let fear decide how our story ends. Elvis teaches us that doubt does not need to disappear for us to move forward. Fear does not have to vanish for progress to begin. All we need is the courage to keep walking, even when the path feels uncertain. And perhaps, right now, someone watching this is standing exactly where Elvis once stood, feeling tired, feeling small, feeling like the dream is too far away and too expensive to keep chasing. If that is you, remember this. Our lowest moments often appear just before our greatest changes begin. The story of Elvis is not a promise that every dream will end in fame or success, but it is proof that quitting too soon can cost us the chance to meet the strongest version of ourselves. Sometimes, the world is not changed by the most talented people. It is changed by those who simply endure a little longer than everyone else. And as this video comes to an end, perhaps what remains is not just the story of Elvis, but a question we must ask ourselves. What dream have we almost let go of? And are we truly ready to live a life without giving it one more step, one more try? Because, like Elvis, we do not need certainty to continue. We only need the courage not to stop today. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. If it touched you in any way, let it serve as a reminder that even legends once doubted themselves, and from that doubt, something extraordinary was born.